Late last night, when I was dozing off to sleep, the New York Jets traded away former second-round pick Denzel Mims to the Detroit Lions. Now, at this moment, this trade is unofficial. But if Denzel Mims makes the Detroit Lions roster, the New York Jets are going to be compensated a 6th-round pick in return, and this trade holds through as valid. But if Denzel Mims doesn't make the Lions roster, then this trade pretty much would be considered non-existent because it won't go through. So the agreement in this trade is that the Jets are going to give the Lions Denzel Mims in a 2025 conditional 7th-round pick. And if Denzel Mims makes the roster, the Jets are going to be receiving a 6th-round pick for the 2025 NFL draft. Now, I don't really care too much about the trade compensation. I more so am worried about if Denzel Mims is going to be able to make the Detroit Lions roster. And if he makes the roster, can the Lions unlock his potential? Now, if you don't remember about all the hype that Denzel Mims had coming out of the 2020 NFL draft, let me give you guys a little bit of a flashback. So let's rewind the clock to the year 2020. Now, coming out of Baylor, Denzel Mims was one of those wide receivers that was getting a lot of hype because of him running a 4.38 at the NFL Combine at 6'3", 207 pounds, and he had a really good career at the University of Baylor. And going into the league, most people thought that he was one of those high upside players that has all the athleticism in the world and all the physical attributes that you look for in a potential high-level wide receiver. He was really good catching 50-50 balls, explosive, athletic, had a really large catch radius. But the problem with Denzel Mims, like most wide receivers that have this kind of prototype, 6'3", 200 plus pounds, and runs a 4.3 something in a 40-yard dash, he wasn't the most polished wideout in terms of what you need to have to be successful at this division. You got to be able to separate, and to have the ability to separate, you got to be a good route runner. Neither one of those things Denzel Mims excels at, and now he's with the Detroit Lions. Now, you may be asking, JT, why didn't it work out for him with the New York Jets? Well, the first half of his rookie season was pretty good. And then the second half, and then the remainder of his time with the New York Jets was pretty much forgettable. And Denzel Mims pretty much is the same player right now that he was coming out of Baylor. He hasn't really developed all that much. He hasn't really improved. And going to the Detroit Lions, hopefully, can give him the fresh start that his career needs. Now, you can't say that quarterback was the reason why Denzel Mims got held back. You got to remember that this is the same guy who played with Garrett Wilson last year. And Garrett Wilson was the best rookie wide receiver in the league, with Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco, and whoever else was throwing him the football last year in the Big Apple. If Garrett Wilson can be the best rookie wideout in the league and can go for over 1,000 yards in year one, why couldn't Denzel Mims be able to have anything similar to Garrett Wilson's success throughout his NFL career up to this point? The Detroit Lions, you look at their receiving core right now, you don't really think that Denzel Mims is going to crack the starting lineup, and he most likely won't. And Lions fans are looking at this as a high risk, low risk, high reward kind of move. Even though Denzel Mims, they don't need him to be good. He's a good developmental project to work on that has a lot of upside and the potential. If you're able to dig in and unlock it, he could end up being a really good wide receiver. But you see, that's the problem with potential. Potential is what you hope somebody can be, or the expectations that you have for somebody. The problem with potential is that potential is something that you don't know if it's going to come to fruition. And even then, you don't even know how high somebody's potential is. And then what happens when somebody doesn't reach their potential? How good are they? What's their floor? You look at Denzel Mims, his floor is a backup quality wideout at best. And going to the Detroit Lions, he's playing with the best quarterback that he's ever played with throughout his career in Jared Goff. You got a really good offensive coordinator that's really innovative, does a great job utilizing his personnel. And really, all you're really looking at Denzel Mims being able to do to get onto the roster is beating out guys like Trinity Benson. Maybe he can end up being a wide receiver 5 or 6 to start the season out. And then he gets a couple of opportunities until Jameson Williams comes back. And the Lions can see what he can do. And the Lions are a team that, if you're asking, what do they need Denzel Mims for? I mean, it's an experimental project. See the upside. See what you can get out of him. And if he ends up panning out well, then you could end up with a very good wide receiver. But if he doesn't end up panning out, you can get rid of him before the season starts. And you don't give up anything in return. I don't think this move is going to play out like how a lot of optimistic Lions fans hope it will. You remember when the Las Vegas Raiders, around the same time last offseason, traded away Bryan Edwards to the Atlanta Falcons? You remember all the optimism that Bryan Edwards had going into training camp for the Falcons? What did he do last season in Atlanta? Absolutely nothing. And you look at Denzel Mims, right? The fact that, yeah, he does have a lot of potential, he hasn't been able to get on the field. And why hasn't he been able to get on the field? Because he just really isn't that good. People are banking on that potential panning out. But most of the times, when you have a receiver at this point in his career, you kind of already know what he has. And he hasn't really shown any flashes of that potential since his rookie season years ago. Most of the time, trades like this, where you have a guy who was drafted with high upside, high potential coming out, but hasn't reached that potential, they don't pan out. Unless they've shown a little bit of some flashes. And Denzel Mims hasn't really shown that over his last couple of seasons with the New York Jets to show us that there's any reason why there's a chance that he will end up just putting it all together with the Detroit Lions. Two of the most important things that you gotta have if you're a receiver is at least decent route running. You don't gotta be the greatest route runner, but you at least have to be decent at it because it allows you to create better separation. And nearly every time you was watching the Denzel Mims highlight over the last couple of years, nearly every pass that was thrown to him was a 50-50 ball. So, at best right now, if the Lions can unlock Denzel Mims' potential, I think you get a better version maybe of what Devontae Parker is with the New England Patriots. But right now, you have a guy that really isn't that good, has to prove himself, isn't even guaranteed a roster spot, and some Lions fans out here are making it seem like they just came away the winners of getting the next Calvin Johnson. Most of the time, trades like this that involve players like Denzel Mims that have a lot of potential that haven't panned out, they don't end up paying off. Not saying all of them don't, but most of them do not. Good example, Bryan Edwards last season. So can the Lions unlock Denzel Mims' potential? I'm strongly doubting it. If I had to give you guys a confidence level, 1 through 5, of how I feel about Denzel Mims being able to get his career going with the Detroit Lions, I probably would give him a 2. And me giving him a 2 is me being slightly more optimistic, simply due to the issue that there is an opportunity that he is going to get some legitimate reps during the preseason. Their starters are pretty much locked in. Marvin Jones, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Josh Reynolds. So Denzel Mims, he's pretty much coming in trying to fight to be the wide receiver 4, 5, or 6 on this team. And even if he makes this roster, he could be a guy who just ends up being good depth for the Detroit Lions. We don't know if this dude is really going to get a lot of opportunities. You mean to tell me that this is somebody who's going to have a big impact on the Lions season, getting traded before training camp, having to learn a new system? Even if he does make the roster, it's still going to take him at least the first half of the season to get somewhat comfortable in this system. So I don't really think that Denzel Mims is going to turn into anything special for the Detroit Lions. At best, I think he makes the roster as their 5th best wide receiver. Hopefully, he could end up working his way up the depth chart. And we're wishing Denzel Mims the best over here, but I don't really think the Lions are really getting lightning in a bottle or getting a steal with getting Denzel Mims, a guy who the New York Jets were about to release until they were able to find a trade partner in the Detroit Lions.